And I had to warn you that there's like some announcements and then some nitty gritty. And when we get to 6.3, there's like a flood of vocab and concepts that are all part of the same thing. So it's kind of a heads up day. The announcements aren't the hugest deal. First of all, there's an after-school environmental film tonight. You can see the trailer on YouTube or on our class's Facebook feed. The movie tonight, I should be honest, it's made by someone trying to make a really biased point. Like it's a really, they ham it up. It's like, look at how bad society is. And I think it's a little bit cheap. But it's a fascinating concept. They get these two old women from like middle of nowhere Tibet. And then they go, hey old ladies from middle of nowhere Tibet, come over to London and check out London. And you can imagine that when these women see some of the gnarlier stuff in London, they're kind of bummed out. I think you guys realize, right, that the most poor people in the remotest part of the world have still heard of Los Angeles and London and Beijing and Tokyo and New York City and stuff. You guys know that? Like, you pretty much cannot find a human that hasn't heard some stuff about what it's like in the first world. But when you take a really remote population and you bring them to see the first world, some stuff sort of surprises them. Like these two old ladies, they meet a homeless guy, and they're like, wait, you really don't have a place to live? Like, nobody will give you you can't live with your family? They're like, no, I had a falling out with my dad, after the war, things like that. And they're like, wait, so what about the rest of your family? And like, it just doesn't compute for them. They go to like an old folks home, and they like start crying. They're like, oh my God, how can there be old people that aren't with their children? Like, what about their neighbors? What about their grandchildren? Like, it just doesn't make sense that we put our old people in the, like, go to the barn, grandma. And it's really interesting to hear these women talk about how the reality of their world is different from the reality of our world. The people who made the movie, I think, were trying to criticize modern society. The 7 people who have no paper on their table, what are you doing today? Like, when you go to school, like, what happens? Our school has like a whole thing about how I'm supposed to like bust you and like give you a ticket and send you to like some place to go get paper and like a lesson about the importance of paper. And you don't have to fake it. Like, I'm not asking you to open a binder. Like, everybody like, okay, fine, I'll read. Like, you don't have to fake it. But like, I'm just shocked that like you just sit in school and like.
They're so awestruck by your.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's just basking in the glow. Feast your eyes, children. And don't be distracted by paper. Yes.
Is the warm up and mouth this thing?
No, it was actually one of your study goals, so you should know this as part of your homework. So that movie's tonight at 6 p.m. I might show it on Thursday, and I might not show it on Thursday. I might show Contagion on Thursday.
Yeah. You're gonna get everyone at that.
After school.
After school? Tomorrow night.
And that will also be a
That would be, yeah. Because it's sort of an example of this stuff, and that movie actually, do you guys know that movie was like, the Centers for Disease Control like had experts to consult with the movie because they wanted to focus on issues of global epidemiology. And so, like, I don't know if it was co-written or reviewed or something, but like a lot of scientists are like, yeah, that movie, like that's exactly the scientist. Like, yes. The only part of that movie that was probably the most fake was the time scale of making the medicine. Yeah.
Fun popcorn.
All right. So you can watch the trailer for tonight's film on Facebook or on YouTube. Through the Facebook group or on YouTube. For the debate, I have a few announcements, and I think a lot of my students had questions about how to get ready for the debate, and I really want to help you with this. First of all, you should know that the idea for me is to have an interesting conversation that the audience will learn from. Your debate topics are intentionally very open-ended. And you should know that the audience will judge you based on how knowledgeable you are, not on whether or not they agree. The point is, for you to show up knowing a lot about the issue, when you walk in, you just give your position and say why. I think shampoo is better because it goes on first and helps you get rid of the knots. I think conditioner is better because it leaves hair silky and smooth. I don't know. I use soap. When I remember. I roll in dust, like chillum. The point is that you're here to have an educated conversation. You're not here to see who reads the best speech. You may not read during the debate. Touch your nose if you heard that. You can refer to notes. So if you're like, the U.S. spends, and then you check your notes, $14 million on shampoo. Like, okay, great. Well, you can look at your notes. You're supposed to have notes. But that's just a little list of bullets and facts. You do not read a script. You're coming to speak, not to read. Please don't prepare a written statement. I'll stop you. And we'll just skip to the other side when you're reading. You're graded based on your team's performance. So even if you're absent and they win, you get full credit. And if you're absent and they lose, you get the partial credit. It's win or lose for the whole team, whether or not you're here. However, individuals might get a 0 if they truly don't participate in the planning. So if you're like, no, look, we emailed Hannah like 7 times and she never wrote back. And like I text messaged Hayden like 17 times and he never made the meetings. And we had 15 research days and homeboy just showed up at the end and didn't know what was going on because he had to floss his cat. Like if you've got evidence that shows one of your members like literally bailed on the group, they're not going to get points. And all you got to do is show me that evidence. But that's why I asked you to use this method of communication in the beginning. If you just say like, I kept telling him in class and then he never said anything, with no evidence, I'm not going to hearsay this. But if you're like, look, there's like 17 emails and never an answer, then that's bad. How many of you have communicated your research to the rest of your group already? That team's going to win. everybody else, do you realize that you've got 2 school days left to go? 2 school days. Every single student must have their own independent individual research. Touch your ear if you heard that. Every student must have their own independent individual research. Okay, anybody want to talk more about the debates? Can I help anybody? If you know you're going to be absent, right now, take out a piece of paper, write your name, the period, your debate number, and the day you will be absent. You can give that to me after class. Name, period, debate number, day. And I'll try to schedule the debates to include the least absences, but I can't make you any promises. Your team might just have to go without you. Okay. Did we talk about epidemiology yesterday?
No.
We talked about everything except number 9?
Yeah.
That's great, because I got to tell you something. Look at this. Number 9 has an asterisk and a question mark. The reason is 1 through 8 are like well-known scientific trends that are recognized by everyone because these are a reality. People have written books about this, and books about that, and books about this, and books about that, and books about this, and books about that, and books about this, and books about that, based on research from real peer-reviewed journals, and that stuff's all for real. And did I use the lottery analogy yesterday in this class?
Yes.
What are the 2 ways that you increase your chances of winning the lottery? Because I think I used 1 in this one.
Buy a bunch of tickets.
Buy more tickets, that's this one. What's the other way?
Go everywhere.
Play more often. And so when humans live longer, the bacteria get a few more chances to break the code. You know what I mean by that? You win the lottery. So there's buy more tickets and play more times. When you live longer, the same bacteria get more whacks at the same code. They get more tries to break the same, pick the same lock. Okay. Thank you for remembering that. I'm glad I got that analogy. Now, number 9, I'm telling you, unfortunately, this is just conjecture. It has an asterisk and a question mark for a good reason. It's kind of like hippie mumbo jumbo. But you know, a lot of doctors are thinking about this and talking about this. You guys realize that in many parts of the world you can die from a cavity, but in the United States, not really. And in many parts of the world, if you break a leg, you'll have a limp for the rest of your life. But in the United States, a doctor will fix that. And you could die of diarrhea in most of the planet, but not here, because we can just fix that. Preventable diseases have kind of been handled. So in most parts of the world, there are a lot of really simple things that medicine has overcome in our part of the world. There are a few things that seem to be different, though. It seems like we have more depression and violence and deficits of attention and crimes of passion in the developed world. It seems that we have more developmental disorders, maybe, in the developed world. It's pretty clear that we have more allergies, and it's very clear that we have more cancer. And a lot of people have been trying to figure out, why would the supposedly most healthy people have these other types of not healthy? And one theory for this is that your immune system is just very simply overwhelmed. I want to talk about what's called the EEA, the Environment of Evolutionary Adaptiveness. The environment where you evolved. It's called the EEA. You guys know that I'm an evolutionary biologist. This is like one of the things that I studied, and I really like this stuff. So I really like this stuff. We believe, and you guys know that you've been basically the same organism for a few million years, and you've only changed your society but not your genotype in the last few hundred. You guys know that, right? You know that if a caveman grew up in your house, they could beat you at chess, and they could have beautiful babies, and they could be president. Because biologically, you're the same, genetically speaking, as a human from 200,000 years ago, exact same. Like, pretty much the exact same. Genetically, we are basically cavemen just living in a weird place. We're just fish out of water. Our culture and societies have changed, but the organism has not. And so it's important to understand what your organism was built to do. Your organism was designed in the EEA to live in groups of probably 15 to 20 individuals who would probably migrate nearly every day. Your average mileage would be somewhere between 10 or 20 miles a day. That's actually like pretty serious hoofing it. You would spend most of every day walking or running. You would run into probably one other group about that size per month. So you would encounter maybe 200 people in 1 year. In the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness, you would eat a very diverse diet, many more ingredients than you eat now. But there was no chemistry, no synthetic chemistry in that environment. So the only chemicals that your body would ever deal with were those 150 ingredients, the diseases from those 200 people a year, and the only chemicals delivered to your body would be like nectar from a flower, or the sting of a scorpion, or the bite of a yellow jacket, or a snake, and that's it. That's your whole entire immune function. Now, look at your life today. You've probably seen more than 200 people before lunch. Imagine that at lunch you're going to take the train to go down to LAX to fly to Mexico City. By sunset, you could see 1 million people. That's kind of gnarly on your immune system. Your immune system would be overwhelmed by that number of human interactions. I've heard this statistic that I think is really shaky, but I think it might get to the right point. So I'm going to just throw out a statistic that's probably false. It's probably false, but it's still an interesting idea. I heard once that because of touching school desks and borrowing pencils and opening doorknobs and turning on the water faucet, in 1 day, the average high school student touches, anybody remember what this is? 10 genitals.
Ew. That is so good.
You know, there's a lot of question about that because of the differences in the methods of urination. But whatever. The bottom line is that you are flooded with contact with people. Look, that genital statistic is kind of mind-boggling, and we don't really need to get into it, because like I said, it's very possibly false. You know, you do the math, and you do the math about how many people wash their hands, you do the math about how many surfaces you touch, you do the math about how many shared surfaces, and I guess it's whatever. Yeah, it might be a lot more, and I don't care. I don't care. The bottom line is, our bodies are very much overwhelmed by the number of people around us. Here's another one. Almost all of your calories come from 4 crops. Almost all of your calories come from corn, soy, rice, and beans, or the things that those 4 crops have been fed to. So you have not a lot of diversity in your diet, a lot less than those primitive humans. But here's the funny thing. The other 10% of your calories come from a million mysterious dietary, I have no idea what that means. I got this supposedly healthy bar that has green and gold and a plus sign on it. Jesse, what's her face, was eating this in last period. Look at how many ingredients are in this health food. Who knows? But how many different people have touched these? What the hell is eleutherio root? Or tocopherols? Or chlorella? Look, peanut butter crackers made with real peanut butter, and that's a big deal. Let's find out what's in that. Wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, mononitrate, riboflavin, folic acid, peanuts, canola oil and or palm oil and or soybean oil, sugar, dextrose, salt, high fructose corn syrup, baking soda and or calcium phosphate, lecithin, and cornstarch. That's a little snack. That's 200 calories. That's not a big meal. I'm not making fun of someone else's diet. Like, I have no idea what I'm eating. Like, it's like, oh, there's some of that in there. Okay. Then think of all the chemicals that touch your skin, right? Like, I wear only cotton because I don't want to wear plastics except for like performance stuff. I try to wear only cotton. So that's 100% cotton, and that's 100% cotton, and that's 100% cotton. But like, how many different dyes went into making this groovy pattern? And how many different chemicals went into growing this cotton? And this is washed in whatever my wife bought. And my toothpaste, I use it because they tell me it's okay to use it. And my deodorant, that has a whole bunch of, you know, flowers and unicorn breath. And like my soap, it's just the milk of God, right? And then like all of you lady folk or dudes, whatever, with all your cosmetics and like hair care products and various like hair treatment things. Like what the hell touches our skin in one day? And then think of all the chemicals that get into your body from other sources. Like all the pollution that you breathe in, and all the weird chemicals that are used to package your food. And then like, the doctor tells me to take these, so I take them, and the white ones are kind of hard to swallow, and the red ones, I don't really know what they do. And the yellow ones make me feel kind of good, and the blue ones, I don't know, they make me feel kind of dangerous. I would just go, whatever, pop! You know, your body is dealing with more stuff than it was ever designed to deal with. And your body's really complex, but your body's not intelligent. Your body's only built for being a stupid caveman or whatever. Your body's built to like run around and chase giraffes or something. Dig up roots. We're really good at that. Like hunter-gatherers, no, it feels really good to hunt. Like that feeling of looking for stuff, your body's built for that. Like you go into autopilot, it's like a trance. When I go free diving and I start looking for lobsters, I lose track of time. I'll come up and it's like, whoa, 5 hours, hardly. Like your body, like that's what you're built for. But in that world, you had like almost nothing going into your body and almost nothing on your body. We're living in a world where there's just a lot more inputs. So that's what I mean by this thing. We're probably overwhelmed by the crowd and the food and the chemistry and the pharmaceuticals. Remember that these are all little battles that we could probably win one by one. But as a war between our species and all those different germs that are trying to kill us, the scales might be tipping. You know, they get more lottery tickets, and they get a longer time to keep playing the lottery. And we're coincidentally not really focused on fighting disease as an organism because we're trying to figure out what the hell we just ate. And all these people are moving, so all of a sudden we've just like taken the human map and just like thrown it across the floor, and all the population is just cross-pollinating everywhere. It's kind of an interesting time, right? You guys bored by this? I think I'll put you to sleep. All right. Let's finish up 6.2 then. Are there any questions about 49 or 50? So short-term stuff is like, oh, there's a drought, or like we had like a drop in energy supplies, or like there's a disruption in food because of a train crash. Intermediate stuff is like, you know, water quality is going down and desertification is a problem because, you know, soil can lose its nutrient content for a few seasons. And, maybe there was a forest fire, so we don't get trees for a few years, and maybe there's not enough trees growing so that we can make heating fuel. And then long-term stuff is like climate change and disease and groundwater decline and soil erosion. Like once those things start going, they're not going to get fixed for generations. Yeah?
Wait, what did you say about short-term? I didn't get that.
That's like stuff that's immediate, like, oh, the supermarket is still on fire. Or like,
For little things.
yeah, I mean, droughts, that's like a year, but maybe the rain will start next year. Or a big one is energy prices. So like, oh, energy prices just spiked and it costs too much money, so I can't afford milk right now. That's just like a short-term thing because energy prices probably come down tomorrow. All right. Number 51 was today's warm-up. What are the three methods? In 51, that's one of them. What? Birth control, that's another one of them. And the third? What's that? Yeah, national programs. Yeah. It is kind of shocking how many students do not do their homework. That's okay. It's just high school. Remember that the age of first childbearing is just a natural consequence of development. If your country's developed, people don't breed that much. They don't start that early. And remember that that's a social economic status thing. So even in this city, the poorest people have babies earlier. Everywhere in the world, the most developed populations have alternatives. Like after high school, they go travel in Europe, or they go get an internship at the law firm. And so people of a higher socioeconomic status, they usually just have other stuff going on, and children are just not really on the radar. When we talk about birth control, all of my students think about like condoms and birth control pills. And yes, those hormone things and those physical barrier things, those are very successful. Don't forget that there are other hormone things, like the arm implant or that T-bar implant that I can't figure out. And that condoms or physical barriers are also, there's like gels and there's like women condoms that are almost as awkward as man condoms. What do they call that? The dam?
The Great Wall.
Yeah, the diaphragms. Those things are, you know, somewhere in the very good range. Oh, ballpark between 90 and 99.99 range. And living in the first world, you should all know that you can probably find access to those things, and I'm optimistic that you figured that out by now. And I highly recommend birth control, very highly. But I also want to remind you that a lot of places that's just not realistic. Taking boxes of supplies, you know, if there's a space to take boxes, you would probably just be taking food or like water filtration or like medicine. So in a lot of places, birth control as a technology is just not a likely answer. But there's a lot of other birth control stuff that's not things you buy at the pharmacy. They're just like knowledge of how the body works. Like women, you have a peak in fertility at some point after your menstrual cycle. And like after your period, it's like a certain number of days. And apparently things feel kind of different. Like there's like it's called high quality vaginal fluid. Anyway, I'm sorry if this makes you squeamish. I won't say the V word again. But this is like basic information, and you can like just put that on a poster, and somebody can walk into a village and be like, look, I didn't bring any technology, but just so you know, your rhythm goes like that, and you're like peak fertility and like zero fertility. So that would be, you know, like 50, 60, 70% effective. It's better than nothing. A lot of people don't know that if you have a high frequency of breastfeeding, like if you breastfeed every 6 hours or so, like 4 times a day at least, and they're like spaced every 6 hours, most women don't menstruate during that. So if you breastfeed your last baby longer, it'll delay the birth of your next baby. You know, like, a lot of that stuff is not as high effectiveness as the things you have access to, but in many parts of the world, that's a very real alternative. And finally, when we talk about national programs, remember the example of Iran. They made it available, and then they got the religious leadership to say, yes, that's a good idea, and it worked really fast. You know, there's like 1.1 billion people on Earth. Well, listen to the Pope. If homeboy comes out on the balcony of the Vatican and starts throwing out rubbers, like, that would have like an immediate impact on population size. We all know he's not going to, because you can't dare block the hand of God, and apparently that's where the hand is. But you get what I'm saying, that if you have a way to include your religious leadership, that can really have big impacts on people. Finally, there's economic stuff you can do. Like in some countries, the first 2 kids go to college for free, but the 3rd kid does not. In some countries, you go up into a higher tax bracket because it costs money for society to deal with all your extra spawn. So like, yeah, the first couple, you're in this tax bracket, but you go up a bracket and you have too many children. Or like maternity leave. Like we want to support families, so the first couple kids, you get 6 months. But on the 3rd kid, you're on your own because we can't pay you to sit at home and breathe. And so, you know, they're like different economic, either tax penalty or social benefit that are kind of scaled depending on the size of your family. Anybody want to ask me something about 6.2? Okay. What? I'm waiting.
Wait.
Still waiting. Still waiting.
6.1.
No. Alright, 6.3 vocab. 6.3 vocab. A lot of vocab on this one. Yeah.
Acute and chronic events?
That was supposed to say effect, not event. Acute effects are effect of an illness that are really like clear cut. Like either you have a runny nose or you don't. And either you have cancer or you don't. But there's some stuff which is chronic, like my tennis elbow. It'll go away for a couple of years, and it'll come back for a couple of years, and it'll go away for a couple of years. That's what we mean by chronic. They're like sort of like a repeat thing. You know, like cold sores? That's a chronic effect. Once you have that strain of herpes, which almost all of us have, then whenever you're stressed or you're in ultraviolet or you run out of food, your cold sores will flare up because your body just can't keep holding them down. Other vocab? Yes?
Bioremediation and phytoremediation.
Okay, so I've got 3 words that are associated, and you got to know one to get the other two, and I'm not going to repeat myself, so here we go. Bioremediation is when you use living stuff to fix a problem. Usually we're talking about pollution here. So like there's a bacteria that eats petroleum spills. Phytoremediation is when you use plant to fix pollution. And mycoremediation is when you use mushroom to fix a problem. Apparently there's like sunflowers that soak up some type of pollution that I can't remember. And I believe mushrooms soak up radioactive isotopes of heavy metals. So you have like a nuclear hazardous waste, nuclear waste spill, you can't soak up radiation. But mushrooms will soak up the radioactive isotopes, and you throw away the mushrooms and you have radioactive waste in the barrel again. Yeah?
Yeah, those, they look like rocks on the outside, but they're like organisms and they produce oxygen. They're like around a long time ago, but I think they're still something like South Africa. I forget what they're called, but if you use those to like provide oxygen to like a small area, would that be bioremediation?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No. Well, what would be an example of bioremediation?
Bacteria that controls it, for example. Yes? Okay, the grasshopper effect is one of my favorite things to talk about. Do you guys know which latitude has the most industrial waste?
60.
Yeah, it's exactly 60 north. Check this out. It's pretty obvious once you see it. Look. 90 degrees south, 60 degrees south, 30 degrees south, 0, 30 degrees north, 60 degrees north, and that is
Canada.
Vancouver, Seattle, Michigan, the Great Lakes, New York City, the Northeast, most of Europe, Mediterranean, Caspian, Eastern Bloc, much of the Middle East, whatever. There's stuff, and Japan. That's actually like a lot of industrial activity, right? So where do you think we have the most body burden of industrial pollution? No. Check out this crazy thing. When this volatile pollution goes high up into the atmosphere, it grasshoppers over to the Arctic Circle. The people with the highest concentration of PCB on our planet are the Inuit, which some of you might know as Eskimo, but apparently that's an insult, so we call them Inuit, not Eskimo. I went to Alaska, and I was like trying to have a conversation. I kept saying Eskimo. As guy was like, we don't say that around here. And I was like, what? I was just talking about Eskimos. He's like, no, we don't say that. I was like, what? Eskimo? I was like, yeah, you gotta stop saying that. It's pejorative. And I was like, I can't call Eskimos Eskimos? And he's like, stop! And I was like, what? Eskimo? Apparently the word is Inuit, and Inuit.
That sounds worse.
You've heard that the Inuit have something like 20 billion words for snow? Because, like, what else is there to talk about? These are like they're like the cleanest living humans on Earth. Seriously, Inuit, like modern Inuit today, like near big cities, they tend to smoke a lot and drink a lot. Like many poor people around the world. But traditional Inuit lifestyle is supposed to be like one of the healthiest lives on Earth. All they eat is like seal and fish. They drink pure, clean water. There's like no radiation, no local pollution, no cars, there's no smog, there's like no bad habits, they don't have sugar, they don't have cancer. They're like super healthy. Except here's a crazy thought. All of the industrial pollution in the 60s, if it goes high enough in the atmosphere, gets blown over to the North Pole. So the highest levels of PCB on Earth are found in Inuit women. It's polypleasant.
Why women?
Polycarbonated bromines, I think. And you can just Google it. I'm probably saying the wrong thing. Let's see. I think it's polycarbonated bromines.
What does it do for women?
The reason it's in women is because women have slightly higher percentages of body fat than men, because they have all those beautiful curvatures. And I guess because women store polychlorinated biphenyl might be done. And it's like an industrial chemical. It's made when you like create or burn plastic. And apparently it stores up in fat. And the Inuit, because they live in a really cold part of the world, one of their primary food sources is either fatty fish, because all the fish are fatty, or they eat the fat of sea mammals like seals. And so their diet is fat, and fat is where that stuff is stored. And women, because they have a slightly higher percentage of body fat than men, then women have more body fat in them, so they store more of it. And so the highest levels found on Earth, they're like 20,000 times more than you have in your body. Like, it's really significant. Grasshopper effect. When pollution made one place, goes to another place. This is also true from the equator to the 30s, but that's a lot weaker. From the 60s to the poles is a lot stronger. The good news is that at the southern 60s, there's almost no land. So it's only at the North Pole that we see this. Any other vocab in 6.3? Please look around. These words get defined later, so I'd rather do it now for everybody. We got all of our words? Yes? So here comes a cluster of words. Carcinogen causes cancer. Mutagen causes mutation. Teratogen causes developmental problems. And allergen causes allergy. Next.
Methylation.
Okay, so this is a really, really important term, and I'm going to want everybody to get it. This is sort of a long explanation, but it gets a couple of stars. I was planning to talk about it. So, remember, this is methylation I want to talk about. Why don't you guys talk about that later? It's nice that you're helping each other, but it's hard for kids to hear. Remember, like I told you earlier, that your body is built for a very simple life. Your cells are not intelligent. They don't have IQ. Your cells are just a really simple filter. Good stuff goes in, bad stuff stays out, because the alternative had less babies. So your cells, in a really simple world, they love carbon compounds. Your cells, if they see carbon, they're like, oh, that's either fat or sugar. We need both of those. And think about it, for a hunter-gatherer, like if you find something fatty, that's going to taste good because you want your body to take it in because your cells need it, because that's not very common for a hunter-gatherer to find fat. Do you understand that? And sugar in nature is especially rare. So it tastes delicious because we want to encourage the animal to eat the sugar, because in the wild, sugar is very rare. That's another carbon compound. You guys understand that? Your cells, if it has carbon, they're like, sugar, fat, we need that, bring it in, whatever. Carbon, I like that. Very simple filter. Your cells are stupid, but they go, huh, carbon, gotta be good. Here's the funny thing. You can stick carbon onto bad stuff, and your cells go, huh, carbon, and they take it in. Like this, please look up. It's called methylation, where you attach a methyl group to something else, any reagent. Methylation is that process where you attach the carbon It just means attaching carbon. Doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be bad, it's just the process of attaching actually a methyl group, CH3 in particular.
Since your taste, it would taste good if you needed it, how come, like, I don't need any more, like, cupcakes, but yet it tastes good to me? Like, why is that?
Because your body is not intelligent. Your body was evolved in a world where you would never find cupcakes. And if you found one big old barrel of cupcakes, it would probably be really good for you to eat the whole barrel. Because that would be the one time in your life you scored cupcakes. Now we live in a world where I just can't get people to stop giving me damn cupcakes. Like, seriously, stop it with the cupcakes. Oh, all right. And then as soon as I smell it, like, I know it's bad for me, but oh, I just can't resist. Because the organism is not intelligent. It's just built to do things for the previous life. We're fish out of water, dude. Like, the great way to remember is we're just flopping around on the deck, and we're not built for that.
Like, you keep saying, like, our cells are built and the whole cupcake thing is about for the next piece of life that comes out of it, which is our reproduction. So would you say our only reason of living is for reproduction? As humans in our like most basic form. I mean, the only reason we live is to reproduce.
I can't say that. I don't know why we are here.
Yeah.
Why we live. Purpose is not a biological question. So to give you reason and purpose, personally, I'm here to eat well and shag. So that's what I'm built for. That's my purpose. I came to figure that out when I was like 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because they do your like
Cupcakes and that kind of stuff, and it's just a distraction. attraction and a luxury.
But like seriously, your like evolution doesn't have any other way to happen without reproduction. So there is no alternative to that question. You cannot evolve not to reproduce. Right? So you're asking me a question that is full of value judgments and things that we don't know, and I don't know. But in evolution, there is no other evolution but reproductive success, because that is inherent in the function of evolution. Now look, methylation is when you stick a methyl group onto anything. So here's a wacky thing. You guys know what happens when you drink a gallon of mercury? No, you don't. You crap it out and it goes clink in the toilet. Yeah. Yeah. Because your body doesn't really recognize mercury. It doesn't look like food. Mercury is not especially reactive. So your body goes, meh. And it just clink in the toilet. Now here's a wacky thing though. There are bacteria that do like mercury, and those bacteria, when they get rid of the mercury, they leave it like this. That's called methylmercury. You know what happens when you like just barely touch a teeny microscopic amount of methylmercury? You get cancer in like 13 places because your body absorbs it immediately, and that stuff's not good for you. And by the way, all 13 of those are like between here and here. This is called methylmercury. It is the methylated form, and because of the carbon, that is mistaken for being useful. Your body's stupid. That's not actually useful. That's toxic. But your body hasn't been built to have like the toxic test. If I make crack cocaine, your body doesn't know that's good or bad. Your body's like, huh, I don't know. And if the crack cocaine makes it feel good, your body's like, yes, feel good. Do it again. Because your body's not intelligent. It's not built to figure these things out. It's just this like robot created by whatever made you more babies a gajillion years ago. You understand what I'm saying here? This is working today? Yes?
So like when we were like hunter-gatherers or whatever, and like assuming it's not crack or
You mean when we lived as hunter-gatherers? We still are.
like, and we picked up like a plant and it tasted really bad. Is that just because our
Right.
body doesn't eat it, or it just tastes really bad?
Well, your body has a lot of reasons for things not to taste bad. A, you don't really need it. B, you have evolved a sensitivity to toxins that are naturally occurring. So most stuff which tastes alkali is also toxic. So your body goes, and that's your body going, wait, the alternative didn't have any babies.
So it's just like a natural reflex.
That's the whole meaning of reflex. It's funny, I could talk about evolution all day. I swear, this is like my thing. Yeah?
Where does the carbon that makes methylmercury happen? Like where
So methylation is either an inorganic process done by humans in a lab,
Right.
or it is almost always, if not done by humans in a lab, it's a microbial process performed by anaerobic bacteria, I think. And there are a gajillion different types of ways to methylate, so don't quote me on that. Yes?
You said that if you drink say, mercury, and it, like in your body, it turns into the methylated.
That's not what I said.
That's not what you said.
No.
That's not okay. You don't have the bacteria in you that make it.
No, you don't.
methylate? Okay.
Not that I know. Not that I know of. Maybe you do, but I don't think so.
Wait, so you'd be comfortable just drinking mercury?
Comfortable.
Please don't quote me on this. Yeah, sure, bro. Go try it. If you could get purely elemental mercury, it's not likely it would make you as sick. Coincidentally, there are other ways in which it can be bad for you. But it's not nearly as likely to enter your cells. And for the most part, your body does not react with truly elemental mercury. Question is, can you tell the difference between elemental mercury and methylated mercury? Because I honestly can't. So like, yeah, sure, I trust the bottle. Okay, who else? Yes.
So what would be traditional mercury poison? Would that be like
Yeah, so mercury poisoning is methylated mercury. Yeah. What's up, Trevor? All yours. Should you say goodbye? But nice